Hello and welcome back for another video on the Virtual Airline Pilot Channel, and back in Prepared actually. So haven't done a video in Prepared for absolutely ages, mainly due to flying the IXEG 737 in X-Plane. So yeah, I thought today I'd do a little flight and going to be heading down to Samos in Greece today. Currently sat at Skiathos airport in Greece, which is one of the Greek islands nearby. Inspiration behind this video is actually a video from a different channel, and I saw a channel called the Flight Sim Deck, which is by a guy called Patrick, and he did a really cool video down to Samos, which was kind of reactionary to 29 Palms releasing their latest scenery. So yeah, I thought I'd do a little flight, take it down there. Haven't flown this aircraft for ages, so what better time really to do that. So this is Skiathos here, really short runway. If you're not familiar with it, it's referred to as the St. Martin of Europe, and as you can see, that's where the runway starts or ends. There's the midpoint, and that's where the runway starts or ends again. We're on runway 2 today, which is this one here, and we'll be taking off, flying straight ahead, and then heading over that hill over there to Skopolis, and then making our way down to Samos. Now this airfield or airport does present some challenges that you wouldn't find at your kind of big international hubs, which is, with the runway being the length it is, aircraft performance can be an issue, and especially in Greece this time of year, it's peak season, it's boiling hot, and the weather at the moment I believe is about 29 degrees Celsius. So for an aircraft as, I'd say, big as the NGX, although it's not a 777 or a Airbus A380, it's still pretty huge when you look at the size of this runway. And I'm going to have a look at some performance information in a minute, just so you can take a look at that. So let's jump into the flight deck. Everything's pretty much set up. Now just some more details about this flight. I usually fly with FS to crew, but I'm having all sorts of problems with it. It's not doing what I want it to do, so won't be using that today. And it's not on VIII today. I'm recording this live. The time in the UK is about 1:15 on a Friday, so probably not a lot of people controller-wise online. So yeah, no ATC. Got a few more things to do. What I'm going to do then is just grab the weather on the radio. So I'm using Active Sky Next, so I'll just dial that in. You won't be able to hear this, but I can read it back to you in a moment. Okay, so the weather has, well, the temperature has actually increased, and the current outside air temperature is 33 degrees Celsius. So that's jumped up quite a bit, but it's kind of midday, actually about 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon in Greece, flying with real weather, and yeah, it's really hot out there. So right, let's just do a couple more things. So I'm just setting us up for our departure. Put the runway heading in. In fact, we'll come back to this in a minute when I do the pre-flight flow. Let's jump over to the charts and I can show you some information there. Okay, so we're taking off from runway 2, which is here. And let me just reload that chart. There we go. So we'll be flying heading 014 to 2,000 feet and then making a right hand turn to Skopelos and then tracking the outbound radial 090 to Koros. And then Samos. What I forgot to mention, I'm doing this video in two parts because it could be quite a long, the flight time's 35 minutes, but it's quite boring the bit in between. So what I'll do, I'm just going to record a video of the departure, which is quite intensive, and then cut the video in the cruise or on the way up, and then you can come back and check the next video to see the approach and landing into Samos. Can give you a little flavour of that though. So we'll be coming in via the Ormos 2 Alpha arrival, track the 297 radial inbound to Samos, and then when we get there it's going to be okay, so yeah, we're going to track 160 radial outbound, the 9DME, bring the aircraft round, configuring, and then bring the aircraft in for a visual approach on runway 09. It's quite a tricky approach actually, so I'll cover more about that in the next video on the way down, but let's focus on the Skiathos departure. So yeah, we're going from 02, let's jump back to the flight deck now. Okay, QNH is set. Let's just check the weather's hooked up. So I'm using Active Sky Next in the background, so apologies if the screen blanks out. There we go. Okay, interestingly I'm getting a different reading on ATIS to the what flight sim's saying, or what prepared saying, but we'll go with that, that's fine. So right, let's take a look at this performance, because as I said, this is a short runway and it's really hot, and that has performance implications for the aircraft. The hotter it gets, you know, if you've got a heavy aircraft, lots of cargo or baggage, if you're fully loaded, it can be quite difficult to get off the runway fully laden. So if we jump over to PFPX where the flight plan is, okay. So let's load up TopCat, which is the performance tool. Should be able to see that. Okay. Apologies for the blurriness or what's going on with this picture here. I'm not entirely sure why it's done that. But okay, so we're going to update the weather. So it's currently saying 28 degrees Celsius. Now, if I click this button here, compute, and what it's done, it's taken the takeoff weight from the flight plan, which is just under 59 tons. It's put those details in combined with the weather, and that's fine. With the weather and the wind speed direction, so you can see there's a small headwind of 5 knots. And it's given me some details here, which are my V1, V rotate and V2 speeds. And this figure here, margin. So if we were doing a derated takeoff, if we wanted to save the engines, this is the details we'd use, but you see there's only a 3 meter margin. So at V1, if we had to cut the engines and bring the aircraft to a stop, this is the kind of margin we have for error. That's not a great deal. So a standard takeoff, we would have 12 meters remaining. And what we can do, if we go air conditioning off, compute that, you see here, we've now got 32 meters of margin. And the reason being is it's more power to the engines, because the packs, the air conditioning packs, take power away from the engine effectively, and by turning those off for takeoff, we just gain a little bit more power on the climb out, or we can get up to speed faster, therefore we don't need as much runway to take off. So I'm going to go with this today, which is it's going to be a normal takeoff, 28 degrees Celsius, V1 of 133, V rotate 133, and V2 133. That gives us plenty of margin for error should we need to stop the aircraft in the event of emergency. Good, let's go back to the flight deck. I'm not really going to go too much into detail of performance because it's quite a big subject, but if you want to make your flying as realistic as possible, it is definitely worth looking into and getting a tool like TopCap, which works perfectly with PFPX, which I use for flight planning. So let's put, in fact we don't need to do that, that's fine. So literally we're going flaps 25. Now that's another factor, we need a lot of lift to get off the runway today. So you see these speeds have been calculated automatically by the FMC. We're going to ignore those and put our own speeds in. So 133, 133 and 133. Good. We'll set the trim in a minute actually. Okay, so that's all the performance information in there. It's still going to be quite a challenging takeoff for the aircraft, so you'll see on the takeoff roll how quickly that end of the runway comes up. But I think now it's time to do the pre-flight flow. So like I said earlier, I usually fly with FS to crew, but I've had a few problems with, well, I was using it earlier and it just wasn't responding to my commands properly. So instead of me trying to do that and all sorts of things happening, I'm just going to do it myself. So let's go yaw damper on, fuel pumps on, cabin utility, IFE passenger power, that's on. We can switch to ground power now, that's fine. Seatbelt signs. We've finished refueling, so that's fine. Window heats on. And we can pressurise now on the hydraulics. The packs are on, that's good. Oops. And right, cruise altitude today 27,000 feet, and the land altitude at Samos is 17, so we're going to set 0 here. Okay, flight directives now can go on. And MCP, so the course is then for departure. So okay, so on the I'm just looking at the chart on my other screen. So we want 113.4. On my side, and we'll set it on your side as well. And also going to set the there's a NDB as well, which is 326. Not flying online today, so we'll just leave that set as it is for the transponder. So we've got ADF 1 on my side, and on your side we'll have the VOR. There we go. Runway heading 017. Initial climb, we're going to go straight up to 10,000 feet, that's the restriction on the star. And the speed then, V2 133. Set that. The courses, I didn't set actually, we want 090 on both. There we go. Auto brake RTO. Standby instruments set. Engine indications normal. Let's put that to the system page. And speed brake lever is down. Stab trim cutout switches are normal. Parking brake we can now set. Transponder's fine, so that's a pre-flight flow. So we'll skip the safety inspection checklist and we'll look at the before start checklist then. Let's go ahead and close the doors as well. Good. And we can take that ground power away as well. So the before start checklist aligned. So phones are off, IRS mode selectors and nav, gear pins removed, light test, we check that, oxygen tested 100%, yaw damper is on, navigation transfer and display switches are normal and auto, fuel we have 5 tons and the pumps are on. Cabin utility and IFE, that's on. Emergency exit lights are armed. Passenger signs are on. Window heat is on. Hydraulics are normal. Air conditioning, pressurization, packs auto, bleeds on set. Pressurization mode selector is auto. Instruments, cross check. Auto brake is RTO, speed brake lever is down to 10, parking brake is set. Stab trim cutout switches are normal. Wheel well fire warning also checked. Radios, radar and transponder set and standby. Rudder and aileron trim is 3 and 0. Takeoff briefing we've discussed, so that's fine. PA, we're not doing one of those, but we'll say it's complete. FMCDU, that's all set, and the M1 IAS bugs are set as well. Stab trim, is set, and EFB is airplane mode and stowed. Flight deck windows and cockpit door, we're all good on that, that's fine, that's closed. So we can go straight into the before start procedure now, which is A pumps off. Doors are closed, packs, we can turn those off now. So it's going to get quite warm in the back. Isolation valve is open. APU bleeds on, anti-collision light, so we turn that on to let the ground crew know that we're about to start up. Parking brakes on and the transponder is alt off. So the below the line checklist then, so A pumps are off, air conditioning packs off, anti-collision light on, parking brake set, transponder alt off, so that's good to start. So let's go ahead and start engine number 2. N2 is rising, and we have oil pressure and N1 rotation now. Looking for 25% N2 and then put the fuel in. 24, 25, and monitor that engine. EGT is rising. You'll see these yokes are wobbling about. I think it's down to the null zone I've got set on the yoke. And let's start a cutout. And looks like a good start. So we'll go with start of engine number 1. So N2 is turning. Oil pressure is rising. And there's N1 rotating as well. Looking for 25% again for N2. 23. 24. And there's the fuel going in. EGT is rising now. And let's start to cut out. Just monitor that engine, looks good. Okay, so let's switch over to generators. Oops, there we go. Probe heat can go on now. And hydraulics we can pressurise. Packs can move to auto. Isolation valve to auto and close the, turn off the APU bleed. Aircraft is pressurised. Start switch is continuous. APU will turn off in just a moment, let that cool down. Recall. Checked. Flight controls. Okay, so... Oops. So we'll go full left. Full right. Centre. Full down, full up, centre, and the rudder. Full left, full right, centre. Brilliant. Okay, so now we set the flaps. So we need flaps 25 for this takeoff. It's 10, 15, 25. So it's going to take a while for those to come down. Quickly check the engine indications, they all look normal, so we can blank that. And there we go, flaps 25, green light, brilliant. So let's do the before taxi checklist. So generators are on, probe heat is on, anti-ice definitely not required with a temperature of 33 degrees Celsius outside. A pumps are on, air conditioning, packs auto, bleeds on, isolation valves auto, start switches are continuous. APU will go off now. Recall, check that again. All good. Flight controls we've checked, flaps are 25 required, 25 selected, and green light. And the stab trim is 3.5 units required, 3.5 units set. Start levers are idle detent, and that's before taxi checklist complete. So let's put on the taxi light. And we're clear left. And we're clear right. So it's a really short taxi out. So left turn here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold it here whilst we get the aircraft ready for takeoff. Really, really small ramp at Skiathos. And I've been into this airport a few times in the real world, in a 737-800 in the flight deck, and yeah, it's quite a challenging airport to fly from and to. So let's park it there. Put the parking brake on. So we want to go before takeoff checklist to the line. So config, we've checked flaps 25 green light, stab trim 3.5 units, takeoff briefing, where it's runway 02 straight out, and then runway heading to 2,000 feet, right turn to intercept the Scopolos VOR. Some birds up there, so just to be aware of those. Hopefully we don't get too close to those. And cabin will say it is secured. So let's turn the weather radar on. Probably won't need that, but we can turn the transponder on now. Parking brake off. So let's taxi out. So as I said, not flying online, so the approach and looks like the airspace is clear.
Approaching 02.
So we're going to backtrack now on the runway.
On runway 20, 1,800 feet remaining.
Imagine living in that house. Be a bit loud. If you go on YouTube, or where you are now, if you search up Skiathos Takeoff, you see everyone stood here with their cameras getting absolutely blasted in a jet blast. And it's really dangerous, but thrill seekers love it, you know, especially when a 757 takes off. I think that's the biggest aircraft that can go into here, that and an Airbus A321, and they do make a lot of noise.
5,100 feet remaining.
And kick up a lot of dust. So let's stop it there. Can practically see the end of the runway, but let's give it a go. Let's go landing lights on. Start the clock. So we're going to hold it on the brakes. Stabilise the engines at 40% M1. That's good. And then set takeoff power.
Caution, short runway, short runway.
It's 80 knots. V1, rotate. And gear up. Good performance off the runway. Let's bug up now. Flaps 15. Take LNAV as well. Start that right hand turn. retracting the flaps as we go up. And that's the flaps up. Excellent. So I'm going to fly straight ahead now to Skiathos. Transition altitude, set standard. And I'm just going to hand fly it for a little bit. So we can bug up a little bit more now. There's 7,000 feet, climbing nicely now. And just intercepting that radial. Just trim the aircraft a little bit. And I think we'll take Command A and VNAV as well. And we'll go straight up to our cruising altitude, which is flight level 270. There we go. So that was quite a busy departure. Let's do the after takeoff checklist. So after takeoff checklist then, air conditioning pressurization is set, auto brake is now off, start switch is off, flaps up, no lights, landing gear is up and off, and altimeters we're at standard now. And that's after takeoff checklist complete. So let's hit alt intervene and we can continue up to our cruising altitude. So you see that waypoint there, just says flight level 100 or above. So we're bang on schedule for that. Lovely. So that was the departure from Skiathos. It's quite challenging when the temperature's that high, and especially if there's a strong wind, like strong crosswind. If you're fully laden, lots of baggage, lots of passengers, then you may need to look at turning the air conditioning off to get some extra power to the engines. If that's not enough, you might need to look at offloading some bags. And what can happen as well is, if you've come in with too much fuel, and for this sector the fuel requirement's 3.5 tons. If you had 5 tons on board, that's an extra couple of tons that are going to add to your takeoff weight, and as such it's going to affect your performance. So it's really worth bearing in mind this sort of stuff when you are flying, and you'll notice it on these shorter runways. If you start taking off at max takeoff weight, that airport flaps 5 takeoff just wouldn't work. You'd quickly run out of runway, and if you needed to do an emergency stop at V1, there's a lot of birds flying around and stuff, and you would be in a lot of trouble. So give it a go. So it's quite a fun departure, and landing as well. I'm going to do that later on, I think. The scenery's by 29 Palms, and really, really cool scenery. Looks really realistic, nice textures, and just kind of adds to the realism of flying to these challenging airports. So heading up nicely now to flight level 270. see Skiathos there in the background. Really nice scenery. Couldn't resist the screenshot there. So yeah, that was the departure from Skiathos. I'm going to cut the video there, and if you're watching the live stream, I'm flying this real time, but it's a little bit boring, the kind of bit in between. So check back in a bit. I'm going to do the approach into Samos, which is quite a challenging approach, so it should be quite interesting. So best thing to do, if you click on subscribe now, you'll get notified of when the video's up, and I think you get notification of live stream, but if not, when the video goes live, which will be shortly after, you can watch it. And if you like this video, click like and leave me a comment. I'd be really interested to hear what you think, and I'd like to know as well if there's any routes that you'd like me to fly, because I kind of thought this one up myself, and it was off the back of that flight sim deck video that I saw by Patrick. I'll put a link to his I'll put a link to his channel in the description below. Some really cool cinematic videos there, edited nicely, and yeah, he did the visual approach into Samos and did a really good job, so hopefully I can do a good job as well. So yeah, go and check out his channel as well. But yep, see you shortly again on the Virtual Airline Pilot Channel. See ya.